this wasn't just a scientific disagreement. This was a war that would decide how the world lives and how it dies. Because to win this war, they didn't just build, they destroyed. This is the War of Currents. Thomas Edison was born in 1847 in Milan, Ohio, but he spent his childhood in Port Huron, Michigan. After his family moved there in 1854, he was the seventh and last child of Samuel Ogden Edison Jr. and Nancy Matthews Elliott. His father's family came from the Dutch in New Jersey, and their last name used to be Edison. Edison's great-grandfather, who was a loyalist, escaped from New Jersey to Nova Scotia in 1784. The family relocated to Middlesex County, Upper Canada, around 1811. Edison's grandfather, Captain Samuel Edison Sr., served in the 1st Middlesex Militia during the War of 1812. His father, Samuel Edison Jr., later moved to Vienna, Ontario, but escaped to Ohio after participating in the Rebellion of 1837. As a child, Edison went to a local school for a while, but eventually his mother, who had taught school in the past, mostly educated him at home. Thomas was not very healthy and had some hearing difficulties from a young age, possibly due to having scarlet fever when he was around 11 or 12 years old. The combination of his ill health and being taught at home made him a passionate reader. It is said that Edison would listen to music by biting down on wooden surfaces to feel the sound in his head. When he grew older, he thought that his hearing issues helped him focus better on his tasks without distraction. Some modern historians and doctors believe he may have had ADHD. At the start of his career, he took a chemistry class at the Cooper Union for the Advancement of Science and Art to assist him with his telegraph system project alongside Charles Batchelor. This seems to be the only time he attended classes at a college or university. As he grew up, boys were expected to start working young. At just 12 years old, in 1859, he got his first job selling newspapers and snacks on the trains of the Chicago, Detroit, and Grand Trunk Junction Railway between Port Huron and Detroit. While working, he used the long stops in Detroit to read more, and discovered Isaac Newton's The Mathematical Principles of Natural Philosophy, an important book in the history of physics and science. Edison also read the various books and newspapers he sold, noticing there wasn't much information about local events. In 1862, when he was 15, Edison started his first business when he created his local newspaper called the Grand Trunk Herald, which he sold on the train. This weekly paper had 24 issues in the first half of 1862. At the height of his venture, he sold 200 copies each day. The income he earned allowed him to hire 2 other boys to assist him with selling the papers. He continued to show a strong business mindset in other ventures as well. Further along, he quickly set up a vegetable stall in Port Huron, where he sold fresh produce from his father's farms and items purchased at low prices from farmers near the train route. As he reached his teenage years, Edison stopped using his childhood nickname, Al, and made it known that he wanted to be called Tom instead. His early involvement in journalism showed his passion for sharing information. This interest was also evident in his curiosity about the telegraph, a new invention from the late 1830s that allowed messages made of electrical signals to be sent through wires. Telegraph poles were soon being put up next to the railroads that were being constructed across Europe, North America, and elsewhere. As a result, Edison had many chances to watch telegraph operators while he worked on the trains. He quickly learned Morse code, a system of dots and dashes turned into short and long signals, created by the telegraph inventor Samuel Morse to send messages between stations. In one of his later stories, Edison recalled that in the fall of 1862, he was speaking with J.U. Mackenzie, the station master at the Mount Clemens stop on the Grand Trunk Railway, when Mackenzie's 3-year-old son accidentally walked onto the tracks in front of an approaching train. Tom Edison jumped onto the tracks and saved the little boy. Grateful, Mackenzie offered to teach Tom how to use a telegraph. Within 3 months, Tom had learned the skill, and for the following years, he worked as a telegraph operator on various railroads in Ontario, Michigan, and Indiana. He later described his hearing problem as an unexpected advantage because he could only hear the messages at his desk, while other operators had to manage the noise of incoming messages on different wires. He liked working night shifts because it allowed him to read and experiment during the daytime. By 1864, Tom was employed by Western Union, first in Indianapolis and then in Cincinnati. There, he began to experiment with ways to send several messages over a single wire. By the time he was promoted to a first-class operator, earning $125 a month, the American Civil War had concluded, and he traveled to the southern states, claiming to have restored telegraph links between Memphis, Tennessee, and New York City. In 1866, he moved to Western Union's office in Louisville, Kentucky, where he worked for a year as a wire reporter. He quickly went back to Cincinnati, where he often took breaks from his job to look up books at the library. While many of these books were about telegraphy, the most significant one was written by the English scientist Michael Faraday. His studies would greatly influence the future business use of electricity in the late 1800s. By early 1868, Edison was working as a wire receiver in the Western Union office in Boston. Around this time, he started carefully noting his discoveries from his experiments in a notebook. He also sent his findings to industry magazines, which helped him establish ownership of his ideas. In June 1869, Edison received patent US number 90,646 for an electric voting machine based on telegraph technology. This was just the first of over 1,000 patents he would earn during his 60 years as an inventor. Even though his voting machine did not attract much attention from the lawmakers it was aimed at, Edison soon quit his job at Western Union to focus completely on experimenting and inventing. Shortly after, he created an alphabetical dial telegraph system in Boston. This allowed operators to send messages by spelling out words instead of using Morse code. He planned to set up a duplex telegraph line stretching across New York State from Rochester to New York City, but the tests did not work out. Still, in 1869, he moved to New York City, where he had a brief job as the manager of the Golden Stock Reporting Company. In 1870, after getting new funding to create a faster automatic telegraph, Edison moved to New Jersey. At only 23, he was in charge of more than 50 people at the Newark Telegraph Works. His rapid rise in his career and early graying hair led people to call him the Old Man. These years also brought personal changes for him. After learning about his mother's passing in April 1871, Thomas traveled back to Port Huron for the funeral. Later that year, Edison met Mary Stilwell, a 16-year-old worker at his subsidiary, the news reporting telegraph company. They married soon after on Christmas Day in 1871. Edison's ability to work long hours and his indifference to the 24-hour day caused him to overlook his young wife. Together, they had 3 kids: Marion, born in 1873, Thomas Jr., born in 1876, and William, born in 1878. Sadly, Mary passed away in 1884 at just 29 years old. In the early 1870s, Edison's closest partner was Charles Batchelor, an Englishman who became his chief experimental assistant in the summer of 1873. Edison's machines were very popular, and he was always looking for ways to make them better. He made sketches of many ideas and concepts, which Batchelor turned into technical drawings for the workers to create prototypes. Edison's main interest remained in multiplex telegraphy, which is the ability to send several telegraphic messages over one wire. Although he had been outpaced in creating a commercially viable version, in 1872 he successfully created a duplex telegraph system, and by 1874 he developed a quadruplex telegraph that could send 4 messages all at once. Even though Edison started exploring multiplex telegraphy at Western Union, Jay Gould from the Atlantic and Pacific Telegraph Company offered him $30,000 for his design, which was a large amount of money back then, and helped him gain some financial freedom. In 1876, Edison, who was already searching for a bigger home for his family and his work, decided to buy a house along with 2 pieces of land in the nearby village of Menlo Park for $5,200. Edison's father, Samuel, oversaw the building of a lab close to their house. During this time, while working on communication technology, Edison and his colleague Batchelor invented the electric pen. This pen allowed users to make multiple copies of the same document or drawing because its needle-tip design made stencils by creating tiny holes in a piece of paper. They filed a patent for the invention in March 1876, and it became quite popular, selling for $35 each. Although Edison was officially an employee at Atlantic Telegraph during this period, he was still getting financial help from Western Union to develop a speaking telegraph, which meant sending the human voice over a wire. While Alexander Graham Bell made the first working telephone in March 1876, it was designed to be used for both talking and listening, requiring users to shout for the caller to hear them. Edison believed he could improve the sound quality, so he spent the next 2 years testing different materials, using a metal plate held in his teeth to allow vibrations to move through his jawbone. In 1877, Edison enhanced Bell's telephone by adding carbon buttons, which made the sound clearer. While he didn't invent the telephone, his improvements made the device better and contributed to the success of the Menlo Park project. At this time, Edison was also trying to create a way to record sound instead of just sending it. By July 1877, he managed to write down the sounds of a person speaking on paper, which he could then send back using the coded sound waves. He started calling this invention the phonograph. Nevertheless, Edison could not figure out how to play back the sound until November, when he thought of using tinfoil wrapped around a cylinder to record it. Even though Edison's phonograph could only capture 10 seconds of sound, which let him record the children's song, "Mary Had a Little Lamb," a demonstration of the device in December in New York City at the Scientific American office made a big impression. His ability to recreate the human voice earned him the nickname the Wizard of Menlo Park. Edison established the Edison Speaking Phonograph Company and had his representatives show off the device across the country. In April 1878, he privately demonstrated it for President Rutherford B. Hayes at the White House. While many people viewed Edison's invention as a neat trick, he wrote in a journal about the potential uses of the phonograph, predicting the future creation of recorded music, audio books, and other devices. After he developed the phonograph, Edison shifted his focus to lighting with electricity. By the middle of the 1800s, most homes in places like the United States were well illuminated at night, thanks to advanced lamps that burn whale oil and other materials. Edison and many others were exploring new methods to eliminate open flames from homes, aiming to prevent the large city fires that frequently made the news, including the Great Fire of Chicago in 1871, which had devastated much of the city. With support from Grosvenor Lowry, who was the legal advisor for Western Union and Edison's lawyer, the Edison Electric Light Company was established in 1878 with the goal to own, manufacture, operate, and license the use of different devices for creating light, heat, or power using electricity. Early experiments with electric lighting began with British inventor Sir Humphry Davy around the start of the century. But after 70 years of trials by scientists, a practical product had yet to emerge. During the 1870s, there was a lot of interest in arc lighting, made from 2 carbon rods separated by a layer of plaster that lit up when electricity flowed through. However, since arc lamps were too bright and often needed to be replaced as the plaster burned, they were not good for use indoors. In September 1878, during a visit to the Ansonia Brass and Clockworks in Connecticut, where he observed a dynamo that powered 8 arc lights, Edison became convinced that it was possible to create a network of electric lights throughout a city using just one generator. Edison's tests were centered on incandescent lighting, and he was looking for a filament material that could last long without losing brightness. He brought on the mathematician Francis Upton to gather all the information available on both arc and incandescent lighting, to both guide his experiments and to serve as a standard for evaluating his inventions. Based on their findings, Edison and Upton concluded that a durable incandescent bulb would require a platinum filament, a vacuum inside the bulb, to stop the filament from breaking down when it interacted with air. and a regulator to ensure that a series of lights could maintain the same brightness even if one failed. By the spring of 1879, Edison had successfully powered a circuit with 18 lamps, but he was still far from fulfilling his vision of illuminating New York City with electric lights. Come autumn, Edison decided to switch from platinum to carbon for the filament, which was far less expensive, and in October, he created a bulb that stayed lit for 13.5 hours. Shortly after, Edison managed to keep a light shining for more than 100 hours. He had finally invented a product that he thought would replace the hazardous and environmentally harmful gas lamps at a much lower price. Just like with the phonograph 2 years prior, crowds once again came to Menlo Park to witness his lab illuminated at night by his incandescent bulbs. Even though he received a patent for his new invention, Edison had not yet succeeded in bringing electric lighting to the market. Meanwhile, in England, the chemist Joseph Swan had been working on incandescent lighting since the 1850s and gave a public demonstration of a functioning filament bulb in February 1879, a few months ahead of Edison's success. He was able to install his lights at Craigside, his friend William Armstrong's country home, but Swan's light bulbs had a much shorter lifespan compared to Edison's. Throughout his career as an inventor, Edison maintained that the important thing was not who came first, but whose product was superior. After a short period of rivalry and legal battles between Edison and Swan's companies in England, the two merged in 1883 to form the Edison and Swan United Electric Light Company, also known as Ediswan. A similar competitive situation occurred in England involving Edison and Alexander Graham Bell's telephone companies, which merged in 1880 to create the United Telephone Company of Great Britain. Edison would encounter a significantly greater obstacle in achieving his vision for electrifying New York City. To aid his efforts in gaining support, he relocated his electric lighting business to Fifth Avenue and established the Edison Electric Illuminating Company of New York. Meanwhile, he sent his dependable partner, Charles Batchelor, to develop the Edison Company's business interests in Europe. At the International Electrical Exhibition in Paris in August 1881, Batchelor secured 2 large spaces to showcase all of Edison's inventions, including light bulbs, phonographs, and telephones. His team ran a costly promotional campaign aimed at advertising Edison's system in the French national media. Edison won 5 gold medals, and Batchelor received an offer to supply the lighting for the entrance of the Paris Opera. Shortly after, the La Scala Theatre in Milan placed an order for 3 Edison chandeliers. In London, other members of Edison's team were busy setting up a lighting system powered by a coal generator at Holborn Viaduct near Farringdon Street, which allowed him to illuminate the General Post Office building at Mount Pleasant. The work done by the Edison Company in London helped Edison plan for a power station at Pearl Street in Manhattan. To shield his electrical cables from harsh weather, Edison decided to bury them underground. By the summer of 1882, buildings in New York's financial district started glowing with Edison's light bulbs. In September, Edison himself turned on the lights at the office of banker J.P. Morgan, who was a shareholder in the Edison Company. Edison's power plants began to emerge across America, and its European branches also built a network of more than 150 power plants. He placed the management of the Pearl Street station in the hands of a young electrical engineer named John William Lieb, whom he later sent to Milan as the chief electrician of the Italian Edison Company. This company quickly became the largest electric utility firm in Europe. Even though his first wife passed away in 1884, and he had to adapt to taking care of 3 young children on his own, Edison quickly signed a contract with the Bell Telephone Company in Boston to work on improvements to the telephone design. This agreement brought him back into collaboration with Ezra Gilliland, a former co-worker from Western Union in Cincinnati, who was now leading the telephone experimental department at Bell Company. In late 1884, Edison traveled with Gilliland to the World Industrial and Cotton Centennial Exposition in New Orleans, where he met agricultural businessman Lewis Miller from Akron, Ohio, and his 19-year-old daughter, Mina. In early 1885, Edison and his daughter Marion joined the Gillilands on a trip to Florida. In March, Edison visited the small town of Fort Myers on the western coast and chose to buy a 13-acre piece of land where he could spend his winters conducting experiments. After coming back to New York, Edison was eager to find a new wife to help him care for his 3 kids. Throughout the year, he kept in touch with Mina Miller, and by July, he was set on marrying her, even though he was much older than she was. At the end of September, he wrote to Lewis Miller to ask for permission to marry his daughter, which was quickly approved. Mina's mother was not as excited about the marriage, but the two wed in Akron on February 24, 1886. Before their wedding, they were searching for a bigger home, and in January 1886, Edison bought the Glenmont Mansion in West Orange, New Jersey for $125,000 during a sale. Edison thought of the house as a wedding present for Mina, although she wouldn't officially own it until 1891. After getting married, the couple first went on their honeymoon in Fort Myers, but they had to stay at a hotel because Edison's house, called Seminole Lodge, wasn't ready for them yet. Once the honeymoon was over, they moved into Glenmont, where Mina struggled to manage the household as a 20-year-old stepmother of 3 kids with a husband who spent many hours at his lab. In 1888, Mina had a daughter named Madeleine. 2 more sons came after. Charles Edison, born in 1890, later became the governor of New Jersey in the 1940s, and Theodore, born in 1898, followed in his father's footsteps as an inventor. In May 1886, Edison faced a new type of challenge. He was used to solving technical problems, but this was something personal: labor strikes. This was a time when socialist movements were becoming more popular in Europe and the Americas due to terrible working conditions and demands for workers to work long hours for low pay. Edison's employees were having a tough time keeping up with the demand for electric generators and protested against their long hours. He opposed their calls for unionization and chose to move his manufacturing operations out of the city. The Edison United Manufacturing Company established a factory in Schenectady, upstate New York. Edison became one of many American industrialists during the Gilded Age who pushed back against demands for better workers' rights. At the year's end, Edison became sick with pleurisy and traveled to Fort Myers to get better. Once he got well in early 1887, he oversaw the building of the lab in West Orange, which is now part of the Thomas Edison Historical Park. The year before, Ezra Gilliland had reached out to Edison, and he redirected his focus back to the phonograph. Although he was hesitant at first due to the progress made by the Bell Company during the previous 10 years, in 1887, Edison chose to start a new business called the Edison Phonograph Company, aiming to create an improved device compared to Bell's. Yet, by giving Gilliland the task of selling his new phonographs in exchange for a 15% profit share, Edison unintentionally made him a competitor. As Edison worked to find financial support for his newer phonograph, which would use a wax cylinder, the investor Jesse Lippincott tried to merge the whole industry by talking to Gilliland and Edison's lawyer, John Tomlinson, without Edison knowing. Edison felt betrayed by his partners and engaged in expensive legal battles to maintain his influence in the market against Lippincott, while Edison mainly concentrated on the new phonograph. By the year 1888, he was focusing all his efforts on a long and fierce battle in public relations against Nikola Tesla, a young competitor from Europe who had settled in the United States. Tesla was a strong supporter of the alternating current system, commonly referred to as AC today. This system allowed electricity to be sent over very long distances, sometimes hundreds of miles at high voltages. This was very different from Edison's direct current system, which worked at low voltage and could only deliver power within a distance of 1 mile. Even though Tesla disagreed with Edison's ideas, he began working for one of Edison's companies in Paris in 1882, where he quickly caught the interest of Charles Batchelor. In 1884, when Batchelor returned to New York City, he brought Tesla along, and Tesla started fixing dynamos in one of Edison's workshops. Edison acknowledged Tesla's abilities and praised his innovative ideas, though he secretly thought they were not practical. Just a few months after arriving in the United States, Tesla left Edison's company and created the Tesla Electric Light and Manufacturing Company. but he soon found himself broke when his backers deserted him. In 1888, Tesla achieved a major advancement by developing an AC motor. The invention of transformers in the mid-1880s allowed for AC voltages to be adjusted, enabling AC electricity to be transmitted at high voltages over long distances, and then reduced at the destination for use by consumers. Tesla's motor caught the eye of businessman George Westinghouse, who was working on building the AC electrical system with his company, Westinghouse Electric. After teaming up with Westinghouse, Edison began a harsh campaign to show the risks of AC electricity. In one event, Edison invited reporters to his West Orange lab to see him execute an animal using AC electricity, a process he labeled as electricide, meaning death by electricity. Edison also saw a chance to undermine Westinghouse when he was contacted by a New York electrical engineer named Harold Brown. Brown had been asked by the New York governor to create an electric chair for executing criminals. Alongside Thomson Houston, Edison's competitor in AC power, he made sure the electric chair used a Westinghouse generator. Edison's lawyer worked to make the term Westinghoused popular to describe death by electric chair, aiming to damage the reputations of both Westinghouse and Tesla, along with AC electricity itself. In 1889, J.P. Morgan proposed to Edison a plan to combine all of Edison's electric companies into the Edison General Electric Company. Then, in 1892, Edison joined forces with Thomson Houston to create General Electric, which controlled about 3/4 of the American electrical industry and pushed Westinghouse almost to bankruptcy. The ongoing rivalry between Edison and Westinghouse certainly revealed a more aggressive side of Edison. In August 1889, Edison and Mina visited Paris to participate in the Universal Exhibition. This event is mainly remembered for the opening of the Eiffel Tower, a disputed construction at the time, and meant to be a temporary building. The Edison Pavilion was also a well-liked attraction. Here, Edison showcased his ideas and inventions. His latest phonograph design brought in over 30,000 visitors in just a month. Edison's inventions needed good quality metals, and since there wasn't enough high-quality iron ore in the eastern United States, factories in that region had to depend on costly ore from the Midwest, and even as far away as Cuba and Spain. Starting in the late 1870s, Edison attempted to extract metal from lower-grade ore. He created a method to get iron from beach sand using a strong electromagnet and set up the Edison Ore Milling Company in 1881. However, the company shut down after 3 years because it didn't make a profit. In the late 1880s, Edison revisited this project, this time aiming to develop machines to turn low-quality ore into finer materials, and then separate metal from non-metal using magnets. He bought a mine in Bechtelsville, Pennsylvania, to test his techniques and hired John Birkenbein, the head of the American Institute of Mining Engineers, as his advisor. By February 1889, Birkenbein successfully produced iron that was over 60% pure. The ambitious Edison then wanted to buy his mines and process the metals for his business, making everything self-sufficient. After sending a team of surveyors to find suitable locations, Edison purchased a large area in Ogdensburg, New Jersey, where he built a mill to crush big rocks into small pieces using a series of rollers, which were then sorted into 3 groups using electromagnets. This shows how vast his interests were, as Edison shifted focus from his usual work to find new techniques in this field. The creation of General Electric in 1892 marked the rise of a major player in American business. However, Edison felt frustrated because J.P. Morgan took his name out of the company's title to please Thomson Houston. Edison felt pushed aside in this new business setup, especially when Morgan chose Charles Coffin from Thomson Houston as the company's first president. Even though Edison stayed on the board of General Electric for 10 years and kept working on products in his lab, he stopped going to board meetings. Feeling disconnected from General Electric drove Edison to put his effort into his mining activities instead. In 1893, he had to halt operations when a national economic downturn called the Panic of 1893 caused a sharp drop in demand. Edison had to ask for a loan from his father-in-law, Lewis Miller's company, which managed to get back on its feet with some trouble. Despite these financial issues, at the Chicago World's Fair in 1895, the Edison Tower of Light stood out in the center of Electricity Hall. While there weren't any kinetoscopes displayed in Chicago, by 1894, Edison had set up the Edison Manufacturing Company, which supplied 25 kinetoscopes to the Kinetoscope Company. This company then created a group of machines that charged visitors 25 cents to view short films, showcasing people like Strongman Eugene Sandow, Buffalo Bill, folk dancers, and dancing bears. Edison later agreed to a deal to record boxing matches, which sold for $200 each. The kinetoscopes brought in much-needed money for Edison, who returned to his mine in Ogdensburg, which began operations again in November 1894. Edison aimed to make the mine operate smoothly and turn it into a profitable business, so he built a simple two-story cabin, misleadingly called the White House. Despite his attempts to improve efficiency and productivity, his mine remained less competitive than the bigger mining companies in the Midwest, leading him to cut his losses and close the mine in 1899. This was one of his few significant business failures. In February 1896, just as Edison was starting his research on X-rays, he learned that his father, Samuel, had passed away at the age of 91. Like many of his former employees, William Dixon left Edison Company in 1895 to join a rival, the American Mutoscope Company. While Edison wanted to keep developing the kinetoscope, which was meant for one viewer at a time, Dixon thought that motion pictures should be projected onto a larger screen. After Edison received his patent for the motion picture camera in 1897, he sued Dixon's company, which had changed its name to Biograph for patent infringement. In July 1901, the circuit court decided in favor of Edison, but Biograph appealed and won 9 months later, which led Edison to file a countersuit. As a result, Biograph shifted its focus to newsreels and public events, while Edison's studio kept making light entertainment. In 1903, Edwin Porter produced The Great Train Robbery for the Edison Company. While it was not the first story film ever made, it was a big hit and holds a special spot in American film history. As the 20th century began, Edison stopped his mining work, but he came up with the idea of using the sand produced as waste from his milling process to create Portland cement, a project that turned out to be more successful than the now-closed mine. At the same time, Edison was also focusing more on improving battery technology that would be better than the old lead-acid batteries, which took a long time to charge and often leaked. Edison's answer was a storage AA battery, which could be charged by making an electrical current move oxygen ions through a liquid from a negative metal plate to a positive one. Once the battery was hooked up to a device, the ions would flow the other way. After 3 years of testing different materials, Edison chose iron for the negative plate, nickel oxide for the positive plate, and potassium hydroxide for the liquid. His work on the storage battery happened alongside the early years of car development, and he believed that his batteries could be used in electric vehicles, which, against popular belief, are not a modern invention from the early 21st century, but were being developed widely at the start of the automobile era, before being overshadowed by gasoline-powered engines. Edison purchased several electric cars for his use. In 1901, Edison received a patent for his battery and started the Edison Storage Company. At a low cost of $15 each, Edison's batteries were very popular, but it soon became clear that they tended to leak and lose as much as 30% of their power after recharging. Edison's team made several improvements to the strength and lifespan of the battery in the following years. During the same time, engineer Henry Ford was developing a series of models leading up to the Model T, the first car ever made in large numbers, introduced in 1908. Ford first met Edison in 1896 when he was a young worker at the Edison Illuminating Company in Detroit. Edison encouraged him to create a car powered by a gasoline combustion engine. In the years that followed, Edison came to see combustion engine cars as bad for the environment, and his company offered a cleaner option for car development, but the success of the Ford Model T guaranteed that combustion engines would become the main choice for powering cars. In 1912, during their second meeting, Ford requested Edison to create a battery and starter motor for him. Edison's storage batteries were not strong enough to power the starter motor of a combustion engine, so lead-acid batteries remained the common choice in cars. Even though their partnership did not succeed, Ford continued to admire Edison, and they stayed good friends. On December 9, 1914, a blast in the Edison Film Inspection Department led to a fire that spread through the Edison factory complex in West Orange, damaging many buildings, including the phonograph works. Edison had hesitantly started to record on discs in addition to his cylinders, and his records were still very popular, so he quickly ordered the factory to be rebuilt to keep up with the demand. Due to his lifelong hearing issues, Edison had unique thoughts about music, preferring pure sound to emotional displays and songs. This is why he continued to include folk music and marching bands in his records. In 1915, not long after the fire, Edison wanted to show off what his phonograph could do by organizing events called tone tests in concert halls. He brought in Anna Case, a 25-year-old soprano from the Metropolitan Opera in New York, to record on his phonograph. In front of a live audience, Case and other opera singers selected by Edison would start singing along with the recordings, then occasionally stop to let the machine play by itself, making the audience wonder if they were listening to the live show or the recording. The phonograph records faced a serious problem with the start of World War I in Europe. This led to a British trade ban on carbolic acid, a chemical that military doctors used to stop infections, which was also an important ingredient in Edison's records. To deal with this issue, Edison built a factory to produce his carbolic acid using benzol, a byproduct of steelmaking that he sourced from steel manufacturers in the Midwest. The economic troubles caused by the war made Edison think that the United States needed to be self-sufficient economically. Unlike his friend Ford, who believed that Jewish businessmen in Europe caused the war and that America should not get involved, Edison thought that the United States should be prepared to defend itself if the war reached the country. Shortly after the German submarines sank the passenger ship Lusitania, which had many American travelers on board, in May 1915, Edison suggested that America should create a fleet of submarines to safeguard the East Coast. Soon after, he signed a deal with the Navy to build submarines and battleships. Edison was chosen to lead the Naval Consulting Board to offer advice to the U.S. Navy on new ideas and research. Although the Naval Research Laboratory that the Consulting Board recommended did not come into existence until 1923, after the U.S. joined the war, in 1917, Edison dedicated his time to being a defense advisor, allowing his son Charles to take over the operations at West Orange. Edison's creative mind came up with nearly 50 different ideas for the Navy, but only a few were put into action. This made the 70-year-old inventor feel frustrated with the slow-moving bureaucracy of the U.S. government. To show more patriotism, Edison sold phonographs to entertain soldiers overseas at a discounted rate of $60 each. After the war ended in November 1918, Edison went back to West Orange, which Charles had successfully managed in his absence. Now in his 80s, and after realizing that Charles was capable of handling the business, Edison was more inclined to leave everyday tasks to his son and other team members. In 1923, he officially stepped down as president of his company, Thomas A. Edison, Inc., handing the role over to Charles. However, when the rise of wireless radio technology threatened the sales of his phonographs, Edison stubbornly clung to his phonograph cylinders. During the 1920s, Charles faced many challenges as employees and managers left for more progressive companies. Despite Edison not keeping pace with modern trends, his popularity remained high, and a 1922 survey by the New York Times named him the greatest living American. Although his companies only registered 31 patents from 1921 to 1931, a significant drop compared to earlier years, Edison shifted his focus to bigger ideas. While he had once enjoyed financial backing from figures like J.P. Morgan throughout his life, Edison believed that Wall Street investors only cared about making more money instead of building American business and industry. He criticized the Federal Reserve and the gold standard, claiming that gold has little practical use and is only valuable because it is rare. In a 1922 article for the New York Times, Edison suggested that the US dollar should be backed by agricultural and industrial goods with real value, like wheat, sugar, coffee, wool, and coal. He argued that money based on these items could never lose its worth. During his last decade, Edison focused a lot of his efforts on rubber. In a time before plastic products became common, rubber was very important in daily life. Edison's curiosity about rubber started during World War I, when market restrictions led to a big increase in prices in the United States. Additionally, during his camping trips with John Burroughs and Henry Ford, they often had Harvey Firestone, a tire maker, join them, and the four of them talked a lot about this problem. During the war, Ford and Firestone began making their own rubber by using imported samples. But Edison was focused on finding a way to produce rubber using plants that grew naturally in the United States for reasons of national security. With financial support from Ford and Firestone, Edison set up the Edison Botanic Research Corporation and gathered samples of rubber-producing plants by consulting plant experts and sending his people all over North America. Much of the rubber research took place at Fort Myers, where the weather was better for growing rubber. After carefully taking rubber from each type of plant, Edison documented the features of each sample, instructing his workers to go back and collect the best plants for more tests and growing. By the summer of 1929, he had narrowed his focus to 2 types of goldenrod plants. This was one of his last big projects as a lifelong inventor and researcher. He received the Congressional Medal of Honor at a ceremony in West Orange. Speaking through a radio connection, President Calvin Coolidge said, "Though Edison is part of the world, the United States is proud to recognize that his journey from a simple upbringing and his persistent efforts to overcome difficulties on his path to success reflect the spirit of our nation." Edison's close friend Henry Ford also wanted to celebrate his accomplishments. In Dearborn, Michigan, Ford planned to create a museum focused on American industry history. He proposed building a replica of Edison's Menlo Park lab, which had fallen apart after the death of Edison's first wife, as the main attraction of the museum. In October 1928, Edison and his son Charles worked with Ford to collect original bricks from the site for the exhibit. When the museum opened on October 21, 1929, it was named the Edison Institute of Technology, with Edison and President Herbert Hoover as special guests. The highlight of the event was when Edison connected 2 wires to recreate the moment when his incandescent lamp lit up, illuminating the entire exhibit. Just days after the ceremony at the Edison Institute, the stock market in New York City crashed, leading the United States and the world into the Great Depression. Meanwhile, Charles Edison was working on implementing a decision made earlier that summer to shut down the phonograph business. Although Edison felt quite attached to the phonograph and regretted losing the company, he remained hopeful about his other projects. He successfully grew a goldenrod plant that produced 12% rubber from its leaves. He intended to set up a factory in Georgia on land owned by Henry Ford to make rubber for the Ford Motor Company, but he would never see this plan come to life before he passed away. Even though he was hopeful about the future, Edison's health was getting worse. For several years, he had been dealing with diabetes, and oddly, he had been mostly living on milk and cigars. He also faced sleep problems, often getting only about 4 hours of sleep each night, which made him frequently nap during the day. In May 1931, he spoke on the radio from Fort Myers to the National Electric Light Association, encouraging listeners not to lose hope during the latest economic crisis. He said, "My message to you is to be brave. I have lived a long life. I have watched history repeat itself many times. I have witnessed numerous business downturns. America has always come out stronger and more successful. Be as courageous as your ancestors. Have trust. Move forward." After he returned to West Orange in June, he visited the lab every now and then until he fell in his chair at home on August 1st. His health improved for a few weeks, and he could enjoy car rides outside, but by September, it became clear that Edison was nearing the end of his life. In the early hours of October 18, 1931, Thomas Alva Edison passed away at the age of 84 at his home in Glenmont, West Orange. Thomas Edison is known as one of the most inventive people in history, holding 1,093 U.S. patents and another 1,339 from other countries. Children around the world have grown up learning about Edison's inventions and scientific achievements. Throughout his 60-year career as an inventor, Edison worked on many important developments in areas such as the telegraph, telephone, phonograph, electric lights, power distribution, mining, cement, storage batteries, and natural rubber production, among other fields. While Edison found great financial success with the phonograph and the incandescent light bulb, many of his endeavors did not live up to his high hopes. In recent times, critics have questioned Edison's legendary status, suggesting that he claimed credit for ideas from his allies or opponents, and that his unfair tactics against Westinghouse and Tesla during the current war tarnished his image. There is some truth in this, as Edison was indeed a tough businessman who sought to weaken his rivals. However, he was also undoubtedly one of the great visionaries who helped shape the modern world. Thomas Edison didn't only create light bulbs or phonographs, he sparked a new age. His unyielding passion, many setbacks, and remarkable achievements still motivate inventors and visionaries today. From a curious child in Ohio to one of the most brilliant figures in history, Edison demonstrated that creativity is not just a single event. It's a lifelong journey of determination. Nikola Tesla was born on July 10, 1856, into a Serbian family in Smiljan, which was part of the military frontier in the Austrian Empire, now located in Croatia. His father, Milutin Tesla, served as a priest in the Eastern Orthodox Church. Milutin's brother, Joseph, taught at a military school and wrote several math textbooks. Tesla's mother, Georgina Juka Mandic, who also had a father that was an Eastern Orthodox priest, was skilled at creating household tools and machines, and had a great memory for Serbian epic poems, despite not having any formal schooling. Tesla believed that his exceptional memory and creativity came from his mother's genes and the influence she had on him. Milutin Tesla was a talented student who graduated with top honors in 1845. He married Juka Mandic, who was 25 years old at the time. In 1847, after being assigned to lead the parish in Senj, located on the Adriatic coast, they moved into a house that sat on a cliff with a view of the ocean and started their family there. Tesla was the fourth child in a family of 5, having 3 sisters named Milka, Angelina, and Marika, and an older brother named Dane. Milutin Tesla was later moved to the Church of St. Apostles Peter and Paul in Smiljan. He was given a charming farmhouse, a fertile piece of land, and even an Arabian horse to visit his parishioners. Besides being an intelligent man with a large collection of books on various subjects like religion, math, science, and literature in multiple languages, Milutin Tesla was also dedicated to improving the Serbian community. He frequently wrote for different newspapers and worked hard to set up schools that taught Serbians how to read and write. According to his family, Nikola Tesla came into the world at midnight during a powerful thunderstorm between July 9th and July 10th, 1856. His childhood was considered joyful, shared with his older siblings and a younger sister, Marika, who was born in 1859. Tesla often played with his black cat, Macaque, who first amazed him with a loud spark when he pet him, which his father explained as electricity. In another memorable moment with Macaque, Tesla noticed a glowing halo around his beloved cat that lit up the candlelit room where he was sitting. These experiences sparked Tesla's curiosity as a child. Encouraged by his mother's inventive nature, he spent a lot of time experimenting, drawing plans for flying machines that resembled helicopters, taking apart clocks to understand their mechanisms, and even designing them himself. He had a toy sword made of wood, so he could imagine being a brave Serbian fighter. However, behind this fascination was a troubled young mind. Tesla shared that, as a child, He dealt with a strange problem where he could not tell dreams from reality. Tesla's childhood difficulties worsened when his older brother, Dane, died in 1863 after being killed by the family's Arabian horse in a disturbing event that would continue to trouble him. In 1861, Tesla started primary school in Smiljan, where he learned German, math, and religion. In 1862, his family relocated to the nearby town of Gospic, where his father served as a parish priest. Nikola finished primary school and then went on to middle school. In 1870, Tesla moved to Karlovac to attend high school at the Higher Real Gymnasium, where classes were taught in German, as was common in schools in the Austro-Hungarian military frontier. Later, Tesla mentioned that he became fascinated by the electricity demonstrations presented by his physics teacher. He remarked that these displays of this mysterious force sparked his desire to understand this amazing energy better. Tesla could solve complex calculus problems in his mind, which led his teachers to think he was cheating. He completed a 4-year course in just 3 years, graduating in 1873. After finishing school, Tesla went back to Smiljan, but soon caught cholera, which left him in bed for 9 months and very close to death multiple times. In a moment of hopelessness, Tesla's father, who had initially wanted him to become a priest, promised that he would send him to the best engineering school if he got better. For 9 months, starting in early fall of 1874, Tesla roamed the woods and lakes in Eastern Europe, getting physically and mentally stronger as he thought deeply about inventing, turning his clear visions from a painful burden into a powerful tool for developing the ideas that flashed in his mind. When Tesla got back, his father kept his promise by securing him a scholarship with the Military Frontier Administration Authority, allowing him to study for 3 years at the Polytechnic School in Graz, Austria. During his first year, Tesla showed that he was an excellent student, never missing a single class and reportedly studying from 3 a.m. to 7 p.m. Every day, a routine so intense that one professor wrote to Milutin, cautioning him that unless his son was taken out of the school, he might work himself to death. Others praised him for his dedication, such as the dean of the technical faculty, who informed Milutin Tesla that his son was a star of first rank. However, aside from communication problems, he also got there too late and could not sign up for classes. Therefore, Tesla was only allowed to sit in on lectures without receiving official grades during his time there. In 1881, Nikola Tesla got his first job at a telecommunications company in Budapest called the American Telephone Company. He was hired as an electrical engineer by Theodore Puskas, who had worked before with Thomas Edison, the creator of the light bulb, at Edison Laboratories in Menlo Park. By becoming a useful employee and sharing his discoveries with co-worker Anidal Sikiti, Tesla kept studying the idea of alternating current in his free time. He suggested that a motor powered by circuits that were out of sync could provide steady electricity, but he knew he had to learn how to achieve rotating magnetic fields for the system to work. While walking in the park with Anidal Sikiti in February 1882, Tesla suddenly had a brilliant idea and solved the problem of rotating magnetic fields. He explained the idea of an induction motor to his friend by sketching its basic design in the sand with a stick, outlining a new kind of engine that, unlike the direct current or DCL type, did not require a commutator, which was an ineffective cylindrical device made with metal that needed regular upkeep. Impressed by Tesla's brilliance, Theodore Puskas suggested that Tesla should go to Paris to work for his old associate, Thomas Edison, at his company, Continental Edison Company, which focused on electrical equipment. There, he was first tasked by his boss, Charles Batchelor, who had been with Edison since 1870, to design dynamos. These machines changed mechanical energy into electrical energy and were commonly used in direct current systems. In his free time, Tesla kept improving the AC theory after he was assigned to a project in Strasbourg, where he created the first prototype of an induction motor. Unfortunately, he couldn't gain significant interest in alternating currents. This was a pity since alternating current is now seen as a more efficient way to deliver electricity than direct current. Direct current, which became the standard for electricity delivery in the late 1800s, consistently pushes electricity in one direction along a grid. In contrast, alternating current regularly reverses and changes direction along a system as its power level fluctuates. Alternating current is much more effective than direct current. Tesla's mistake, if it can be called that, was that he was simply ahead of his time by suggesting that alternating current was the superior way to generate energy. He was right, but the technology available back then still favored the simpler direct current method. Soon Tesla found himself in another financial struggle after spending all his earnings. His time at the company aimed to impress his boss, Charles Batchelor, who believed that Tesla had the smarts to work with Thomas Edison. In 1884, when Batchelor returned to the US to run the Edison Machine Works, he requested that Tesla come to the country too. Despite his strong disagreement with direct current, Tesla was assigned to improve the DC motors created by Edison, who thought Tesla's ideas about AC were too risky and impractical. This difference in views sparked a rivalry that would last a lifetime. Initially forced to create something he didn't believe in, Tesla became frustrated. He started to highlight the flaws of direct current and argue for the benefits of alternating current, pointing out that Edison's direct current only powered dim lights. Instead, he suggested that generators should be designed based on his polyphase principle, believing that electricity works in cycles. Tesla also argued that one of direct current's main drawbacks was the need for expensive power stations set up every 2 miles, since it couldn't keep high voltage over long distances. On the other hand, he claimed that alternating current, which switches direction 50 to 60 times every second, was much better since it could maintain different high voltage levels and reduce power loss over long distances. This is why, today, the electricity sent to customers through power grids is AC, which maintains energy over long distances using transformer stations that lower the AC voltage over a specific range. When AC power arrives at a location like a house, it's used directly for machines such as washing machines. However, for smaller devices, AC can be switched to DC with diodes in the device's power supply, which allow the current to flow in just one direction, thus providing a steady power flow. To distance himself from Edison and promote the use of alternating current, Tesla launched his own business in 1885 called the Tesla Electric Light Company. He was supported financially by 2 wealthy sponsors, Robert Lane and Benjamin Vail, who believed that alternating current was the future. However, like many challenges he faced later, Tesla requested too much money from his investors. Concerned about the risks of AC, they kicked Tesla out of his own company that same year, which forced him to survive for most of 1885 by working as a repairman and even doing physical labor, where he earned only $2 a day digging ditches. After realizing his errors in 1886 with the help of Alfred S. Brown, a philanthropist and Western Union manager, along with Charles F. Peck, Tesla founded another business named Tesla Electric. This new company was located in Manhattan, New York, where he completed the designs for the Polyphase induction motor. In 1888, he amazed the scientific world by presenting a significant paper to the American Institute of Electrical Engineers titled A New System of Alternating Current Motors and Transformers. George Westinghouse, a notable inventor known for creating the railway air brake, and the leader of Westinghouse Electric and Manufacturing Company, was particularly impressed. His interest grew after visiting Tesla's lab a few days later, where he saw an early version of the polyphase motor. Believing that Tesla's innovative invention could supply power to the United States, Westinghouse bought all 40 of Tesla's innovative patents related to generators, motors, and transformers needed for a polyphase alternating current system. He also hired Tesla as a consultant for a year at the Westinghouse factory in Philadelphia, where some of the first commercially available AC devices would be produced. The launch of the first AC machine in 1886 was the start of a fierce competition known as the War of the Currents, which lasted from 1888 to 1892 and stacked alternating current against direct current. During this conflict, Edison tried to use his influence to turn public opinion in his favor. Despite clear proof that AC was safer and more effective over long distances, he published numerous articles in major media outlets warning about the dangers of alternating current. Still, Edison could not convince his biggest financial backer of DC's advantages. John Pierpont Morgan, a powerful Wall Street investor, merged Edison General Electric with Thomas Houston Company, which focused on alternating current, removing Edison's name to create General Electric and fully transitioning to AC technology. With Edison pushed aside, alternating current proved to be the clear winner of the War of the Currents. Westinghouse saw his annual revenue grow from $800,000 in 1887 to $4.2 million by 1890, while Tesla earned about $105,000 in royalties by 1890, the end of 1891, a time that also brought him many personal and professional successes. For Tesla, who officially became a citizen of the United States in July 1891, he set up 2 personal labs in New York, located at South Fifth Avenue and East Houston Street. On the flip side, Tesla's income from dividends suddenly stopped when Westinghouse's financial situation fell apart. Their plans to grow the company by borrowing a lot of money fell apart in November 1890, after the collapse of the Baring Brothers brokerage firm made worried lenders demand their money back. To recover from his losses, Tesla shifted his focus back to high-frequency alternating current experiments. He invented a lamp that needed only a single wire, along with an oscillating transformer and a high-frequency alternator. He showcased this invention at a lecture in the spring of 1891 at Columbia College in New York, presenting the American Institute of Electrical Engineers to an amazed audience who were astonished by how AC could be used in modern lighting systems. The Columbia lecture made him the top electricity researcher of his time, and in follow-up experiments, Tesla consistently demonstrated that electricity for lighting and power could be sent over long distances. Soon, Tesla was also designing the basic ideas for radio technology. During his 1893 lecture at the Franklin Institute, which was later made popular by Century magazine, he explained the idea of wireless telegraphy and pointed out the importance of grounding the transmitter and receiver to the astonished spectators. That same year, Tesla's company achieved its biggest success so far by lighting up the entire venue of the Chicago World's Columbian Exposition using alternating current. He earned this achievement after outbidding General Electric by $1 million. By 1894, Tesla had gained great respect from his colleagues and received honorary doctoral degrees from Columbia and Yale University, along with the Elliott-Cresson Medal from the Franklin Institute. More positive news came when the Tesla Electric Company was hired to construct the first hydroelectric power plant at Niagara Falls, something Tesla had dreamed about since childhood, which became a reality in 1895 when the initial blueprints were revealed. The Niagara project was a significant victory against the direct energy approach, and Tesla received abundant praise and accolades, including the Order of Danilo from King Nicholas of Montenegro. His success was celebrated globally as a crucial advancement for humanity's future. Tesla remained calm even after a fire in March 1895 destroyed much of his early work at his lab, including hundreds of models, notes, scientific equipment, and photographs, all valued at around $50,000. Despite this, in 1896, he showed that he was one of the first to use the X-ray, which was discovered around the same time by German scientist Wilhelm Conrad Röntgen. He amazed people by publishing the first X-ray image of a person in the Electrical Review using basic X-ray tubes he designed himself. After revealing some of the most creative uses of the X-ray, Tesla then created the main parts of the radio transmitter. He built a simple device in 1896 that could receive radio signals. Tesla shared his findings at the 1898 exhibition at Madison Square Garden, where he showcased a radio-controlled boat he named Teletomaton, leaving the audience in awe. By 1901, he received a patent confirming that he had invented a system for sending electric energy. From 1899 to 1900, after being hired by John Jacob Astor to create a new lighting system for a contract worth $100,000, Tesla moved his lab to Colorado Springs. There, instead of following his sponsor's plans, he chose to study terrestrial stationary waves, which he considered his biggest discovery. In this quiet area, away from the busy life of New York City, Tesla began to build a huge transmitter that used millions of volts of electricity at an experimental site on the edge of Nob Hill. It was here that Tesla first learned that the Earth had an electric charge and could act as a conductor to send electric energy wirelessly. He also noticed that when his Tesla coil was activated, it created sparks that could reach up to 30 feet away, and these could be detected by antennas 10 miles away. Realizing he could send signals wirelessly using the Earth's electromagnetic frequencies, Tesla looked into practical uses for this, managing to light up 200 lamps powered from a source 26 miles away. By using the same effect, he even managed to create artificial lightning. Tesla believed that discovering stationary electromagnetic waves and how they interacted with the Earth had significant consequences. This was a discovery he would spend most of his remaining career studying, as he thought it could allow electricity to be transmitted over long distances without wires. He hoped his work could one day give everyone in the world access to clean and free electric power. However, like many of Tesla's ideas, this was dependent on investors like P. Moran, who wanted to profit from his inventions and only funded projects that would bring them returns. Ultimately, it would be the strong market forces that would hinder many of Tesla's visions. It was during this productive time of exploration that Tesla also made some unusual claims, saying he had communicated with beings from outer space, which caused a series of strange beeps from one of his devices. Tesla first noticed this odd mix of sounds coming from the machine late at night, and thought that the pattern of the beeps suggested an intelligent force was controlling them. He shared this idea in a letter to the American Red Cross in January 1901. Although many skeptics dismissed Tesla's story, some people still believed him. Inspired by theories of Martians, which became popular in 1895 through a book called Mars by American astronomer Percival Lowell, Tesla's supporters suggested he might have made contact with creatures from Mars. Still, focused on the amazing possibilities of earthly stationary waves, Tesla returned to New York in January 1900, eager to find financial support for a big invention that would outshine his scientific competitor, who was also looking into wireless technology, like Reginald Fessenden and Lee de Forest, and especially Guglielmo Marconi, Italian inventors who became Tesla's next major rival after Edison. Wanting to keep his promise from May 1899, in which he said he would communicate wirelessly with Paris by 1900, Tesla sought funding after patenting the magnifying transmitter he built in Colorado Springs. Since the device he envisioned needed to create a lot of electricity from AC equipment, Tesla first approached his old friend George Westinghouse, who refused to get involved, but lent him the needed equipment while most of the project's money came from Wall Street expert J.P. Morgan, who made a deal with Tesla after talks about buying Marconi's wireless patents fell apart. After convincing Morgan that the wireless transmission of messages would make the costly underwater cables his company used for transatlantic communication outdated, Morgan agreed to invest $150,000 in Tesla on the condition that he would own 51% of Tesla's patents. Between 1901 and 1905, with the support of the most significant financial power in the world, Nikola Tesla built a 187-foot-high transmission tower at the Wardenclyffe laboratory, topped with a 68-foot copper dome, which became the first-ever wireless broadcasting system, and was mainly powered by a massive magnifying transmitter designed to send a large amount of electricity to any location imaginable. Confident that connecting receivers to the ground would allow him to capture the electromagnetic waves from the tower anywhere, Tesla was eager to overshadow Marconi, who, in December 1901 in St. John's, Newfoundland, was celebrated by the press as the inventor of wireless telegraphy after successfully receiving the first transatlantic signal from colleagues in Poldhu, Cornwall, England. With a weary Tesla openly stating in newspaper interviews that he thought Marconi had taken many of his ideas from the 1890s, and wanting to keep his supporters on his side, He then revealed plans to develop a world telegraphy system. This advanced communication setup would be similar to the internet of the 1990s, where individual receivers could catch messages and news broadcasts sent from different locations. Tesla imagined various kinds of receivers, including one that could print and publish daily newspapers, resembling a fax machine, another that functioned like a loudspeaker for voice messages, and a third that was a handheld device linked to a short pole that could interpret radio signals, hinting at what we now call cell phones. By the summer of 1902, Tesla had settled into his laboratory at Wardenclyffe, concentrating entirely on boosting power levels. However, after forming a partnership with Morgan to support his project, Tesla found it tough to sell shares to wealthy New Yorkers who thought the investment was too risky. Tesla, who did not share this view, sold $33,000 worth of his belongings and borrowed an additional $10,000 to make his vision a reality, dealing with an extra $30,000 bill from Westinghouse for equipment, a lawsuit from his landlord James Warden for unpaid property tax, and another bill from the telephone company for a special line to the lab. Tesla faced serious financial troubles. His promise to broaden the system's coverage so it could be detected as far as Australia did not convince Morgan, who informed Tesla in July 1903 that he was not going to invest any more money. This unexpected blow to the world telegraphy system infuriated Tesla, and in a classic mad scientist manner, he dramatically increased the voltage of the magnifying transmitter at Wardenclyffe to its highest level, sending lightning bolts into the sky over New York. Looking at it from a risk standpoint, Morgan's choice was quite rational, as Tesla had not lived up to his commitment of creating a transatlantic system in 6 to 8 months, nor a Pacific branch a year later. Some believe Morgan abandoned Wardenclyffe because he feared Tesla would provide free energy for everyone, which would deprive his company of a profitable income. Furthermore, Morgan preferred to put his money into DeForest Wireless Automobiles, a company started by one of Tesla's competitors, which was expected to earn $5 million annually, and had already secured a significant contract with the U.S. Navy by February 1903 to supply the wireless DeForest transmitters. After this period, Tesla, who was no longer the favorite in electrical engineering, struggled to get investors interested. The failure of his Wardenclyffe project changed how both academics and the public viewed him, and the once admired inventor was now seen as someone who couldn't keep his promises. Eager to regain the trust of investors by offering a product, Tesla came up with a plan to sell small Tesla coils to laboratories across the nation through a company named Tesla Electric and Manufacturing Company, which eventually failed due to insufficient funding. Feeling low and unfairly criticized in America, Tesla discovered that his reputation back home wouldn't help him either, as Serbian bankers turned down his requests for money, and his former business partner, John Jacob Astor, was still upset that Tesla used his 1899 loan to study stationary waves instead of working on wireless lighting, and politely declined to help him further. By early 1904, Tesla started offering his expertise as a consultant and began a new project that sought to harness the energy from Niagara Falls with the help of businessman William B. Rankine. Still, Tesla's true wish was always to resume his work at Wardenclyffe, a goal that seemed more difficult to achieve since investors were discouraged by the fact that Morgan held 51% of Tesla's patents, meaning any business partners would have to deal with him to gain financial returns from Tesla's inventions. In response, Tesla sent many passionate letters to Morgan, asking him to take him back. Some letters contained detailed proposals offering Morgan unrealistically high profit returns, while in others, Tesla expressed his feelings of frustration and unfair treatment. Unable to secure financial support and still struggling to get the Wardenclyffe Tower to operate, Tesla found himself in a very low state and started to spiral into a serious nervous breakdown following the unexpected death of his business partner, Rankine, and the downfall of Canadian Niagara Power in the autumn of 1905. In 1906, Tesla bounced back from his breakdown with a new resolve to show his worth, shifting his attention from electrical to mechanical engineering. He explored aviation to raise funds to continue his work at Wardenclyffe, which he had mortgaged in 1904 to George C. Bolt, the owner of the Waldorf Astoria Hotel, where Tesla had lived for many years. The result of his efforts was a turbine that operated without blades, but John James Astor was not keen on the idea and refused to invest in it in 1909. Still, Tesla remained very confident in his invention, securing 2 patents for a pump and a turbine in October, and even launching a new company, the Tesla Propulsion Company. However, after another unsuccessful demonstration at the Waterside Power Station in New York, he continued to dream. About starting his research again on wireless power, he reached out to Jack Morgan, the son of J.P. Morgan, in 1913, hoping he would invest. Jack Morgan, who was more focused on Tesla's turbine designs, gave him $20,000. Instead of using this money as planned, Tesla spent it attempting to convince Sigmund Bergman, a German businessman, to back his project, which ultimately stopped after World War I began. In the following decade, as Tesla's money began to disappear, he kept working on his turbine and collaborated with companies like Pyle National in Chicago, Alice Chalmers in Milwaukee, and the Budd Company in Philadelphia. Unfortunately, he could not solve a recurring issue that ultimately doomed the project, as the thin disks inside the machinery would start to warp when they ran over 10,000 revolutions per minute, and there were no stronger materials that he could use. Due to his difficulty in getting funding for his projects and his tendency to overspend, Tesla's bank accounts were nearly emptied by 1916, forcing him to file for bankruptcy. He confessed that his monthly earnings were only around $350 to $400 after saying he couldn't pay $935 in taxes to New York. Even though he was still listed as the president and treasurer of the Nikola Tesla Company, over 90% of the company's shares were held by friends, bankers, and creditors. By then, many of his patents had expired, leaving Tesla nearly broke. To avoid being financially ruined, Tesla filed a lawsuit against Marconi in August 1915, claiming the Italian had wrongfully patented radio technology in 1904. But the case didn't go anywhere, and Marconi still held the title. It wasn't until 1943, a few months after Tesla died, that the Supreme Court reversed the decision. As a result, Tesla had to support himself by creating small inventions and registering a few upgrades for car speedometers, frequency meters, and flow meters, which he licensed to Waltham Watch Company in 1918. The company used Tesla's name to promote their scientifically built speedometers because, even with his changing situation, his name still had significant weight, and people still showed great interest in his ideas. For example, in 1917, predicting the future development of radar technology in the 1930s, he suggested that microwave radiation could be used to find ships. Amid his money problems, Tesla continued to have supporters. In 1915, the New York Times reported that he had won the Nobel Prize for Physics together with Thomas Edison, who was once his friend but had now become his enemy. However, during the awards ceremony, the prize went to William H. Bragg and his son because Tesla refused to share the honor with Edison. Tesla also hadn't forgiven the organization for naming Marconi the first person to develop radio technology after Tesla himself had received the same prize in 1909. 2 years later, in 1917, Tesla was acknowledged for his contributions when he received the Edison Medal from the American Institute of Electrical Engineers. This medal is the highest award in electrical engineering. At the ceremony, the vice president of the organization praised Tesla's work, stating, "If we were to remove everything that resulted from Mr. Tesla's work from our industrial world, everything would come to a stop. Our electric vehicles and trains would halt. Our cities would be dark, and our factories would be inactive. His contributions are key to the progress of electrical science." Despite the accolades, Tesla did not value the recognition much. He chose to leave the Engineers Club right before receiving the medal, which led his friend, B.A. Barrand, who nominated him, to frantically search for Tesla. He finally found him in Bryant Park, across from the award venue, where Tesla was preoccupied with feeding pigeons. Tesla was particularly upset that the award was named after his rival. Even though he was recognized for his electrical work, Nikola Tesla stayed poor throughout the 1920s. He earned very little from licensing his minor inventions, which led to several legal troubles. For instance, in June 1925, an attorney named Ralph J. Hawkins sued him for not paying $913 in fees. During this time, Tesla began to withdraw from public life, moving from hotel to hotel, acting as a strange recluse and spending a lot of time feeding pigeons in Bryant Park, near the New York Public Library. On his 75th birthday in 1931, Nikola Tesla found himself back in the limelight as he appeared on the cover of Time magazine. This recognition was largely thanks to a young scientist and writer named Kenneth Sweezy, who received over 70 letters of congratulations that were later published in a special volume from notable scientists, including Albert Einstein. In an interview with Time magazine, Tesla discussed many of his ideas and confidently expressed his intention to challenge Einstein's theory of relativity, stating that he was not convinced by the idea of energy being released from a split atom, as well as supporting the idea of communication between planets. In a talk he found enjoyable, every year after that, Tesla would host a press meet on his birthday, which usually lasted 6 hours. During this time, Tesla would talk to many reporters and tell them about his scientific work and personal life. The party in 1934 stood out especially, as it was when Tesla first mentioned he was working on a particle beam weapon. He claimed in the New York Times that it could send strong beams of particles through the air with such huge power that they would bring down 10,000 enemy planes from 250 miles away and could cause huge armies to fall dead instantly. Expecting what would later be known as mutually assured destruction, Tesla thought that his laser team could end wars entirely, as it was so powerful that no defense would stand against it. Although Tesla sometimes got carried away with his ideas, the death beam was a real initiative, and in 1984, a Tesla study called The New Art of Projecting Concentrated Non-Dispersive Energy Through Natural Media was published. This study explained the basics of a weapon that shot particles of tungsten and mercury at 48 times the speed of sound to create destructive projectiles. Even though Tesla's invention was not possible, it attracted a lot of attention, prompting him to hire Hungarian architect Titus de Bobula to build a new tower for testing the death beam. However, the project would never start because by 1935, Tesla had stopped working with Bobula, who had proven to be untrustworthy after he tried to borrow money from Tesla and involved him in an illegal arms deal in Paraguay. Still, Tesla, being clever, managed to use the buzz around him to his benefit in some cases. He offered a working prototype of the laser beam worth $10,000 to the managers of the Governor Clinton Hotel as a way to settle the $400 he owed them. He warned them that the box containing the weapon could explode if not handled correctly, which led to scared staff putting it in the back of the hotel vault. The laser beam also caught the attention of the international community, and Tesla soon found himself negotiating with the League of Nations and the UK government. However, the project began to fall apart in January 1938, after the British ended negotiations with Tesla, and things took a turn for the worse in 1940 when he was left with nothing after a desperate effort to convince the US government that the laser beam could be a useful weapon for World War II. Tesla's failing health got in the way of his last efforts to connect with governments around the world. His health began to worsen in 1937 after a taxi hit him, and he chose not to receive treatment for injuries that would never heal. Living on a limited diet of boiled vegetables and warm milk, along with keeping a distance of 3 feet from others to stay away from germs, Tesla's health habits didn't help him improve. By 1942, he was mostly stuck in bed, losing touch with reality. As his condition worsened, Tesla withdrew from the outside world. On January 7, 1943, Nikola Tesla passed away from a heart attack while sleeping in his executive suite at room 3327 of the Hotel New Yorker, where he had lived for the last 10 years. He received countless condolence letters from prominent scientists and political leaders globally, including Eleanor Roosevelt, the wife of the US President, Vice President Henry Wallace, and several Nobel Prize winners. Tesla's funeral was held on January 12th at St. John the Divine Cathedral in New York City, attended by more than 2,000 people and led by members of the Serbian Orthodox Church. After his passing, Nikola Tesla, who by then held over 700 patents, was cremated, and his ashes were placed in a golden sphere, which remains on display at the Tesla Museum in Belgrade. After Tesla's death, the US government wanted to know if his remaining notes contained anything useful for their military efforts. They examined his documents but found nothing of great significance. By 1951, these documents were returned to the Tesla Museum in Belgrade. However, for many years, curiosity about the laser beam gun lingered because the US government continually claimed they did not possess one of Tesla's microfilms. According to official records, this film was thoroughly examined for more than a month after his death, but the truth of these statements has never been proven. Indeed, there are few people whose work has influenced today's society more than Nikola Tesla. Electric power is now accessible to most people around the world, greatly due to his innovations. He even worked on finding a method for providing free energy to consumers, which may explain why he is held in such high esteem today. However, it can also shed light on why he never profited from his inventions, like individuals such as Edison did. Perhaps it is his vision that makes us admire him so much. Like Nikola Tesla and a group of modern inventors and scientists who often lacked formal schooling changed their areas of work. They are seen as the strange, crazy genius, conducting experiments and doing calculations by themselves. Nikola Tesla is among this group, even though he might not have gotten the wealth or appreciation he warranted during his life. Since he passed away, he has been remembered as one of the most significant and remarkable inventors ever. I hope you found this video helpful and inspiring. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content like this. Share your thoughts in the comments below and let me know what topics you'd like to see next. Thank you for watching.